Welcome to Soul Care, a pause in your week to reflect on what we have. In the Judaic Christian tradition, we begin with the premise, I have enough. I really have enough. I have all I need. The composer Bach wrote a cantata every week for his church in Leipzig, Germany. And one of his cantatas has the title Ich habe genug, which means I have enough. The text reads like this in English: I have enough. My comfort is this alone, that Jesus might be mine and I his own. This is really one of the central ideas of the New Testament. We hear it in Paul's writing that God says, my grace is sufficient to you, for power is made perfect in weakness. All you need is God's grace. Bach wrote a cantata every week. You would think he might not have enough ideas, enough musical ideas, enough biblical ideas to pull together a whole cantata every week. But he did. He had enough. This week we begin Lent. It's a time for introspection and quiet, a time for prayer and soul searching. It's often thought of as a season when we do without. We might fast, or we might not have wild parties. Of course, who has wild parties today in the pandemic? Anyway, we might just lead a quiet life. We ask God for forgiveness during Lent, and we try to walk more closely with God through spiritual disciplines and through attention to our faith. It's a time to retreat back away from the outside into silence, into darkness, into the inward journey. And it's funny because, this is such a dreary time that we live in. We already are leading rather a dark and dreary existence, a rather silent time. We're doing it by necessity, not because of choice throughout these months, but now during Lent, perhaps we will also do it by choice. We don't have everything that we're used to having now during this time of the pandemic, and we might think we don't really have enough fun. What's life without a Super Bowl party, for heaven's sakes, or without plans for vacation, no reservations for travel? What? But truly, life isn't so very empty. Don't we really have enough? In 2 Kings in the Old Testament, there's a story that shows us that we do have enough. It's one of the miracles of Elisha. There's a widow who comes to the prophet Elisha. She's poor, and she's about to lose both of her children. Here is the reading from chapter 4, verses 1 to 7. Now the wife of a member of the company of prophets cried to Elisha, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, but a creditor has come to take my 2 children as slaves. Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? She answered, your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil. He said, well, go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, and not just a few, and then go in and shut the door behind you and your children and start pouring into all these vessels. When each is full, set it aside. So she left him and shut the door behind her and her children. They kept bringing vessels to her, and she kept pouring. When the vessels were full, she said to her son, bring me another vessel. But he said to her, there are no more. Then the oil stopped flowing. She came and told the man of God, and he said, go, sell the oil and pay your debts, and you and your children can live on the rest. I don't know what she expected to happen, but probably not that. The woman said she had nothing in the start of the story. She was in debt, in fact. She was about to lose both of her children, imagine. She thought all she had was a jar of oil. With that jar, Elisha showed her that she had enough. She was to trust and go ahead and do what the prophet asked. She filled one neighbor's jar and then another and another until there were no more jars. Then Elisha told her to sell the oil and pay her debts. She was able to keep her children. When she thought she had nothing, the man of God assured her that she had enough, and she did. We have enough when we have faith in God and faith that God can help us out in times of trouble. We also have neighbors, don't we? And we have some resources, some oil, something perhaps that even can be shared. Perhaps it is our time that we can share, or our money that we can share, or our kindness. Perhaps blessing others is what we need to be doing when we feel like we don't have enough in our lives. Perhaps that should be our focus instead of fearing scarcity for ourselves. This Lent, we pray, create in me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a right spirit within me. It is the central Lenten prayer from the Bible that we say more than once in worship during these weeks of 40 days of Lent. A right spirit might be the sense of having plenty, the sense of having enough. Do we really have to have everything to have enough? No. We just need to have enough. Create in me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a right spirit within me. It's really a prayer for humility. John Wesley said in his covenant prayer, "Let me be full, let me be empty. Let me have all things, let me have nothing." It doesn't matter because we have enough. When I'm feeling down, I might take a walk. And then it occurs to me, oh, how beautiful it is. The clouds, the sun breaking into the sky. Look at the grass, it's green, and see the flowers that are blooming. The camellias, like I have with me here, are bright and full and red. And then at other times when I'm bored, I might just put away my computer and walk to the library. Now the library is closed, so I can't go in, which I love to do anytime, whether I'm bored or not. But I can return books to the library and put them in a slot so that other people can check them out. In the pandemic, reading is really a joy. And now I'm reading a book that's recommended this month by our library by John Lewis. It's called March, and it is a graphic book all about the civil rights movement that John Lewis participated in. You know, as I walked home from the library, I thought to myself, when have I read a book that had almost only African American characters in it? When have I ever read a book that had black drawings of black people on every page? I appreciated what I had read and that I have a library to share books freely in this community and to even give me recommendations of books to read. My head is full. And when I'm lonely, sometimes I call my mother. It's really not so much because I'm lonely that I reach out to her. But then when I think of her, I think how lonely she must be. She's 102 years old, living in one room in assisted living. During the pandemic, she can't even go to the dining room. She doesn't see well. She doesn't hear well. The only people who ever visit her are me and my brother. We come to her window and wave and talk on the phone, and we call her every day. That's all she has. But for her, it's enough. It is. Someday I'll be like that too. Someday I'll be limited and won't have much in life to look forward to. Going forward, I suppose I'll just be looking back at that point. But now, in comparison, I have so much. I told a friend today that he had had more than his share of injuries after having a diving injury and 2 serious bike injuries. He smiled and he said, well, he planned to get back on that bike as soon as he could. It was worth the risk to do something he loved to do. So life has its bumps, its accidents, its tragedies, its pandemics. And sometimes life seems really quite empty, but it isn't. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, which means I shall lack nothing. The Lord is my shepherd, and that is enough. May you have enough, and may it be well with your soul.